What on earth am I looking at, Alanah?
What am I looking at,
I want to
Austin?
fuck Mike a little bit. Okay, so you did Master Roshi. I got it.
Thank
Okay.
you. I didn't think any of you would get it. I was like, there's no way. They're not that
Please tell
correct
me
kind
you're
of
recording
nerd.
that.
I am recording,
Right?
yes.
Shit, yeah, what's
I'm
up?
trying to get my Audacity to work, so
I've even got the little turtle shell backpack and everything.
You have the audacity.
I have the audacity. Well, I don't have the audacity, that's the problem.
Mike, you look fabulous.
Thank you.
Wow.
Kind of want to fuck Mike a little bit.
I get it.
Kind of want to fuck Mike a little bit.
Very good.
Oh, shit.
You know how to make a boy feel special. Yeah, this
I do.
was half an hour in front of the TV just now. There you go.
What?
It's like you stripped the wires out of some kind of unused utility. It's like definitely not meant for this purpose. It feels like you've got like an unworking.
I didn't realize that they actually lit up.
Like I've got little light arms.
Of course they light
Like a
up.
little baby.
I
You
didn't
think he's going to go
realize.
half-ass on this? Hey, by the way,
Wow.
bartender downstairs has a little bit of a sassy attitude and kind of into it. I said, hey, man, I want a glass of that. He goes, I can't do that. I'm like, you can. I believe in you. He says, no, it has to be by the bottle. I was like, all right, fuck it. Give me the bottle. And then he goes, in earnest, he says, do you want a glass or a straw?
Solid.
For
I like to
wine?
imagine that you're also not traveling and that you're at home and you just have a bar in like the living room of your house.
This
So this
is.
is what it, yeah.
I love this so much.
So Troy, are you just playing Troy Baker, like on
Yeah,
the
man.
road?
Have we ever really seen the real Troy Baker?
No, he's doing
is
what I
he
said.
as a chameleon.
You just put a scarf on and you become Booker DeWitt. It's perfect.
Yeah, I quit. This is just, I realized, like, on the other side of this, on the front side of this trip, I was like, this is going to be great. I was supposed to be here with my family. This is a metal straw. I was supposed to be
Good
here
for
with
the
my
ocean.
family, and they're not. Yeah, who gives a fuck about the ocean?
Me
And
about
then
you.
I do. I really do.
I stopped eating
I
seafood.
care about the ocean so much. Yeah. I stopped eating seafood.
Yeah.
And now that like there's the ocean is aplenty. I was supposed to be here with my family. I shot this thing for about a month, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to hang on because at the end of when this thing airs, I'm going to be in London for MCM Comic-Con. Y'all pull up, and then I go home. And then the interval between that was going to be this wistful, wonderful thing, and it's not. And I've just been on the road too long. I'm very
Drinking wine
on
through a
brand.
straw out here.
That's how I'm doing.
Yeah.
I went to Bath yesterday.
Love.
I stayed in a haunted hotel.
That's cool.
They all are in Bath, yeah.
Is
No,
that
it's
a thing?
not. It was annoying. It was actually annoying.
The ghost kept you up.
Damn Spectros.
Yeah.
Who are you gonna call?
They were just
Probably
Parker's
hotel
lawyer.
management to
Yeah,
file a
exactly,
complaint.
yeah.
Austin, I would like to file a complaint about the hoodie. What's this?
yeah. What is
Well,
this?
because I didn't know this was coming, I am a Mass Effect fan who's a Play Watch Listen fan,
Nice.
but also very fancy.
It's also
Nice.
it's Booker DeWitt
Wow.
as a Play Watch Listen Mass Effect fan.
It's a
Wow.
Bioshock
wow.
level twist we're
Here's
experiencing.
the thing, though.
Would you kindly?
You have to commit to this, which means
Oh, I'm the full Joey
Countdown.
Tribbiani right now. I
You are
have
Joey
17.
Tribbiani-ing this situation.
It actually kind of looks good, weirdly.
Well, I can tell you,
I'm
It's
into
Alan
it.
Wake now, isn't it? It's Alan Wake with the hoodie under the...
I feel like
with the hoodie and the jacket. Yeah.
I feel like I look like Richard Riley in Office Space. You know, after he's in his car
You don't.
accident and he's in the severe like head
The
brace.
guy
and
made
shit.
$1 million.
I just rewatched that recently, and it is every bit as funny as it was 20 years ago. I love it. It's a jump to
I got this killer
conclusions
up
match.
inside of me.
No idea what you're
I
talking
can't
about.
talk to my mama, so
You
I
never
talk
saw-
to my diary.
Office Space is a little old for me, Alanah, so, like, we are...
Oh,
Wait a minute,
okay.
what?
No, so people have brought that movie up to me so many times recently. I haven't seen it, but I guess it's like the foundation of a bunch of people's senses of humor.
Yeah, it's where you can draw a straight line from that to like Kevin Smith to like Millennial.
I did recently watch Blazing Saddles, so
Now that's a classic.
Don't try to make up for this. By the way, congratulations.
Yul Bremner, I've just put it together, Troy. You're doing Westworld, aren't you? That's what it is.
You got it. Nailed it.
There you go.
This is a Rorschach test.
you
If
just
I had
said
said something
nailed it.
different,
Yeah.
would you have been like, nailed it?
Also, Mike is doing the epitome of Tron, I believe.
I am the very
Oh,
concept
God.
of
Tron-
Spotify listeners
Tron
are
as a
just
concept.
out right now.
Yes.
What that actually means is that Mike is once again just bidding wish listing. That's the costume. It is a
wish listed it.
Sponsored-
be wish list.
yeah, sponsored content.
I did
The
try
thing is
to do Moneybags
Go ahead.
Mike. I was gonna wear like a sort
That
of
was this. This was how
florally
that turned out.
shirt. This is Moneybags Mike. And I was gonna get a top hat and a monocle, but it turns out it's actually harder to get a top hat than you would think, and a lot of them are very expensive.
Very
But I looked
racist.
into it.
I mean, that's why money bags people. Yeah.
If
I
they were cheap,
also
they wouldn't be a
think-
popular outfit for rich people.
Yeah, you're not going on Amazon for that. I also think that Mike looks like a total supervillain right now. Like he is 100%.
Yeah, the shoulder
The
pad.
lighting is like 90%.
Unlike normal.
Yeah, you look more like David Warner than you do anybody. One of my favorite lines, by the way, in Tron. I have the lines that I quote from the movie 1982. Is that right? 82. Is that right?
Yes, 82,
81 or
Ultron, yeah.
82, yeah.
82. Yeah.
There's two lines that I quote that don't match up at all. He goes, "Stop! I need that," and there's nothing to which has been referred to at all. But David Warner is leaning back, and the continuity is bad because he's not leaning back in the second shot. It's amazing. And then my
Is that on
ultimate
account of
fav-
something missing that was removed? That sounds
It's
like
just-
a dropped shot or a dropped partial line or something.
It's just directors going, we're not sure what the scene is going to look like. You can just tell that it was kind of like, I don't know. And David Warner is in 1982, probably shot in 81. He's in a green screen and he's talking to something that's not there. I totally relate. I totally
At a
understand.
point
It's
in
like,
time where there's no reference point for that.
Wait, so
No
so
reference point
stop.
whatsoever.
I need that was a reference to something that would have been cut, is what you're saying?
Stop, I need that was David Warner's line in response to Master Control saying that he would he's asserting his powers, like, you think you can do this without me, ha ha ha. And he goes, stop, I need that! But he doesn't say what he needs. But he has, like, it's so strange. And then he's, like, leaning way back, but in the second shot, he's not. And so it's just, like, this weird continuity. But the ultimate one is goddamn Bruce Boxleitner coming up and going, we made it! This far. Watch it. It is the best. Shatner would look at that and go, that's a long pause.
I won't hear a bad word against my close personal friend Bruce. We sat in matching makeup
I love it.
chairs. He's a lovely bloke.
I thought you were
love
going to
it.
say my close personal friend Tron. He was like, yeah, you're at that level now.
Tron, that's
You and
true,
Tron
yeah.
are...
You do get to meet Tron.
Master
at some-
Control
Tron
actually is
Tron
Master Control,
himself.
Yeah.
Mike's
Moneybags
EP.
Biffle knows Master Control, yeah.
It is
Which is
interesting. We can
Moses,
talk
as
about
we know.
But I agree, David Warner. Like,
It
there's
is.
a nice. We've put a nice little David Warner Easter egg in there. Like, I love the man.
Well done.
Yeah.
I wonder how Bruce feels about this because, I mean, obviously, when people think Tron, they think Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
But Bruce Boxleitner was the titular character, right? So this is
That was unintentional, but perfect.
that was BD before the dude. But it is very interesting to me. I wonder how he feels about that as far as being slighted, because I can't think of another movie where the hero was kind of like one-upped by the side character. Because I mean, at that point,
He's
Jeff
a chill
Bridges
guy.
had done a
He
lot of this
introduced
movie.
himself to me as TV actor Bruce Boxleitner. So, like, I was like,
Yes,
I like the guy immediately, like, based on that. Like, he's definitely,
and
he's got some
TV is
humility
Bruce.
about it.
I knew him from Scarecrow and Mrs. King, which nobody outside the U.S. knows what that show is. But like,
Including at least one person from the U.S.
From the US.
You may have imagined
all
that.
right.
I'm not sure that exists.
100%. Scarecrow and Mrs. King, there was this whole like thing in the 80s where it was, what happens if we put, you know, we flip the roles, and it's like she's the staunch businesswoman, and he's the wacky-do guy. And it didn't really work because you had Remington Steele, you had, which is a great premise for a show. You had
Moonlighting era as well? Is it that
and then
kind of time as well?
Moonlighting hit, and that's where it was like, that's the magic sauce up until the point where they had sex. And it was like, I don't know, we don't want to watch it anymore because there's no tension.
Damn.
You have to go back to watch Moonlighting. Moonlighting is an amazing show, and it made Bruce. It made
Troy
Bruce
switches
Willis.
off every movie or TV show with the characters.
The minute they
have sex.
fuck.
That's the end of the show.
Now there's no
It was
tension.
like,
Very
There's no
Puritan.
tension.
His
I was
wife
wondering if
hates
they
it.
would or they wouldn't. They did. I don't care anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still
You
unclear
show
how
me-
Traveler
Yeah,
was.
things
Same
have
with
been
Groups
really
of
tough
Friends with
since
Troy.
Traveler.
dude. She's like, there's no tension in our. We're great. How are you? We never fight. There's no
As
problem.
soon as you have sex with your wife,
It's
that's
boring
it.
for the
That's
audience,
it.
but it's great for us.
Pretty much. That's why I have so many Ring cameras. I'm starting my own network. I'm live on the Ring network every morning.
Austin, I wanted to ask, this is sort of an aside, because I didn't watch any of it. Would you like to convince me that Andor is good?
I haven't watched it yet.
That's fine. I refused. I put my foot down and was like, I can't do any more Star Wars. I can't watch anymore. I just keep getting angry.
Why?
Because I really didn't like the last two series, and I felt like I was becoming the angry Star Wars Reddit guy because I was getting really pissed off about it. So I actually I even privated some videos about Star Wars that I had made because I was so negative about Star Wars. It was mostly
Pirated or privated?
Privated.
I want to make sure I heard. Okay.
But it was mostly Book of
Steal
Boba
it.
Fett, but I also didn't like Obi-Wan very much. And then people who are part of that audience who you would definitely not want on your side assumed that I was on their side because I strongly disliked the stuff. So I was like, oh, I don't like any of this. So I didn't watch Andor because I was like, I can't believe the trailers. I don't want to buy into it again. But I heard it's
But why
very
get
good.
angry about it? Like, what's the point of that? Like,
It's not
like,
intentional. It's not not
Austin.
wanted.
Fight the case, Austin.
So
Go ahead.
the long,
Off
deliberate
to a
pause.
So-
The hell was that? I think we had
Troy's head
the
just
blow.
exploded from the inside
Yeah,
out.
I also heard myself back for a second. We had a little wonderful technology moment there. I was starting to say my dramatic pause is going to look like deliberate thinking, but it's more that it's, I think, just hard to breathe in this thing. But
Fucking buy the ticket, take the ride.
It's
You
worth
did this
it.
to yourself.
it's true. It's true.
I'm starting to be able to smell burning, so I'm
Yeah,
terrified
exactly.
right now.
Oh.
I'm realizing how much copper wire my body is currently wrapped in
Great.
right now. It's fine.
All right.
Carry on.
The
In this episode, Mike Bithell spontaneously combusts.
I think he and I are in a race to spontaneously.
Yeah, which of us is going to
combust.
catch light first?
I think the UK is
keep
probably a
watching.
little bit colder.
Yeah,
It's true,
I'm
but
coming
it's
from
been very
you're right,
nicely
I'm
autumnal
slow
here.
start.
I know. I walked out. So I've been overseas. We'll
Pearce-
get to Andor. I've been overseas, and I was in Switzerland, and then I came home on Sunday, and I walked outside, and I was like, oh, slightly crisp, because I'm used to it just
I
being
was
so
in
hot.
Switzerland. When were you in Switzerland?
I was only there for less than 24 hours. Saturday and Sunday.
Me too. I was in Geneva.
I was in Zurich.
Oh, you're in the German side. By the way, if anybody's been paying attention, I've been doing the tour of everyone's grandmother's bedroom for
it's
the
great.
most.
The hotel that I stayed in
Holy
Switzerland
shit.
was ugly as shit. But there was a guy who knocked on the door and said, "Hi, it's the butler." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "The chocolate butler. You get free chocolate every day." And I was like, "What?" And so this
What?
man
A
dressed in this
chocolate
suit
butler?
with this hat gave me he had this cart and he gave me whatever Swiss chocolate I wanted.
He didn't
Here's
work there.
the
He
deal.
was just
If
some
you're-
guy that's rumored to move through the hallways.
guys.
I love that guy.
Look at the fly.
If you're ever in Switzerland, if you find anybody on the streets that was like, "Here, you want
Just
some
give you
chocolate? Eat it, because it's the best fucking chocolate you'll ever have in your life." This is what I
No,
would-
we don't endorse
audience,
that.
We want to be
We
really
do not
clear.
endorse
Troy
that.
does not speak for the show there.
No, that
his
is
own
not the
angle.
official stance
Please
of
don't eat any
Play Watch
chocolate
Listen.
given to you.
Don't
I'm
take
down.
anything from strangers. Shit.
You know what?
I'll go.
I took this candy from a stranger. I never met this person in my life who gave this to me, and I know that it's gonna be the best chocolate I've ever had in my
Troy
entire
has
life.
officially joined the race for combustion, and this
Yeah.
is how it starts.
Who will die?
It's very Halloween of us. I bet it's good. Anyway, Andor.
I think too many people try to.
Audio listeners,
Instant.
Troy has died.
Cyanide laced
He was
coffee.
just right out.
He needs the Nicolas Cage. You want me to put this needle into my heart?
He's committed to it. Do you think he went to vomit again?
The real commitment will be if literally the next 30 minutes goes by.
This
and
is
he's-
it. Yeah. If he can keep it going
Fully-
for half an hour, that will be genuinely. At
Or-
what point do we start worrying? It's the little reflection of him crouched down in the window.
Oh, can you
I think
see him?
that sets that thing up. No, you couldn't at all. I just like you couldn't at all. I was just
Damn,
being-
I got excited.
Fuck.
The only way it could have topped that is if you had your head rising so slowly in frame that it took a solid 30 minutes. Like if you had the sort of muscle
like a
control
few
to just
pixels.
read.
Yeah, Trey, do better.
Yeah.
Bring
Sorry.
a little
It was a
bit
good dry
more to
run.
the show next
Boy,
time.
that's the
It was a-
theme for
it was a- it was a-
2022, isn't it?
It was a performance lacking in technical skill. That's all I'm saying.
Very good directive note there, Mike Bithell.
If
Appreciate
you're
that.
if you're in London, by the way, I left at the interval, which is not my review. I did it because I wanted to make sure I was on time. But I finally saw The Play That Goes Wrong. You ever heard of
Oh
it?
yeah. Has that not made it to America yet? Is that not? I would assume that would be like.
No.
Oh,
Maybe it
that's-
has. Who
okay.
gives a shit though? Super good.
All right, Austin.
It's good though. It is good.
Very long
Austin,
pause. You
Andor,
had time
please,
to think. Andor.
please get your thoughts out for the love of God.
I know. Thank you for
I made
your
that.
patience and bearing with me.
Yeah, you had to prepare.
So,
By the way, there was something great with the
This is another one where we just
just for that,
10 minutes of interruption.
I'm doing the
No.
1950s
Oh, no.
no,
Apollo,
No.
like the Apollo probe is careening, so I have to loosen my tie
Okay.
to look like a stressed late night NASA
Right.
Great.
scientist.
Okay, yeah, that's allowed. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Andor.
And I
In
need
6 words or less.
I need like
Ed Harris.
Glasses
the
up on my
glistening
head.
forehead.
yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
and a lot of sweat. Yeah.
So, my
Did you know that Ed Harris?
this is
It'll
gonna be
never
the,
not be funny.
This will be the finale of this 20 minutes from now. Oh, and by the way,
So do you remember last episode, Austin, where we had that lovely chat and we kind of let each other speak and we kind of
Did you
really
interrupt
talked through
him?
stuff? It was really great. Not at all. It was wonderful.
It was good.
it was a
didn't
what's
watch
the
it.
term? Conversation.
That's right.
Very
idea.
very charming that was. Also, that feels like 50 years ago.
I know, it was only
if I
2
may
weeks.
just
That's right.
editorialize.
Only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How weird.
Do you guys want to see what it looks like when you have a hotel do your laundry?
Oh, they give you little bags, don't they?
So a wonderful left turn there.
Oh, very nice.
That looks like
It looks like I went to prison. Like I went to prison and they were like, here are your
Oh,
effects.
well, that's a fancy prison.
That's a fancy prison.
They folded it for you, bud. Yeah, you're all right.
That's true. It
Reminds
it
you of
looks more
Andor.
like you bought. It's like you went to like a vending machine
Sock
that
store?
gives out like prefab
Socks.
outfits.
This is
Here.
the Troy Baker.
Yeah,
You wear this
exactly.
now.
I'll have a bag
Do
of
I
Troy
choose?
Bakers, please.
No.
So, all right. So here's my thoughts.
Okay.
I think there are people that say, I've seen the review. It's a good show, but it's not really Star Wars.
Oh, I don't care.
And that, I think, there's part of me that fully understands and even in a way kind of agrees with that assessment, which is why if I lean into the part of me that agrees with that, because there's another part of me that goes, it's actually a beautifully return to form for Star Wars, but I'll get to that in a second. If I lean into the argument that it's good, but it's like it's not Star Wars-y enough, but it's like independently of Star Wars a good show.
I feel like that was
That
needed.
is what. That's why I think you should sort of walk back your ban, as it were, because it is such a palate cleanse. It's like a. I mean, there's been how many? 6 episodes, 7 episodes, or so?
7 now, I think.
I think the one before the last one was basically the first one where, had it been any other show, what happened would have been in the pilot episode. They spent like 5 hours building to the thing that most people would have been like, no one cares about all this bullshit. Let's just cut straight to
in
the
a
point.
good way?
In a very good way.
Okay.
Like, to me, I love it. It's far and away my favorite Star Wars since since Rogue One, which are collectively the two far and away favorite things of the modern era.
Yeah, okay.
So I have a question pursuant to that notion of it's not Star Warsy. What does that even mean anymore?
I got into this argument with someone. Well, not argument, a debate on this a little while ago.
It was a conversation, you would say.
Version of it. It was a conversation.
I just feel like I just titled the.
So the answer to the question is
yeah, that's a good
one.
The
Timestamp, by the way,
reason. So I had a chat with someone who was. It's now a chat with someone who was like, it's not Star Wars, and I think I get the perspective because it's basically. It's not really a Western. It's not really a serial action show. It's not really. There's no lightsabers. There's no. It's kind of.
There hasn't even been a single mention of the Force.
Wow.
So I read something that I heard.
Or even they don't. Not only do they
we're
not say
getting
the word, they don't even
spoilery. We're getting spoilery.
No, I love that.
We've not even seen a spaceship in space yet. That's the thing
Wow.
that someone pointed out. That I was like, that is mind blowing.
Wow.
6 episodes in. Or I am 6 episodes in, but no, it's a political thriller. It's one that's taking itself to a very serious level. It feels like you're watching peak TV.
A friend of mine said
something rather than a Star Wars.
You know the Jean Le Carre novels like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
100%.
They said it's basically a Star Wars rendition of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It's about paranoia. It's about like the mutual paranoia that a rebellion and the Imperial authorities kind of have internally and externally, which is very much a Cold War style thriller.
It's a Star Wars show about war.
Yeah,
and that's
So would you say
it's really good.
that
it's really good?
If someone let's take Alanah, whatever, I would even pull it back and say someone who just doesn't have that strong of a position on Star Wars, because I understand like. I don't get angry about it because I'm just too old to care. But Patton Oswalt has a great thing. Is like I don't hate any music anymore. In my 20s and 30s, I'd be like, I will tell you what is.
I have to clarify. I hate almost nothing except for the fucking Book of Boba Fett.
I think it's one of those.
Didn't blow my skirt up, whatever. But my question is would you say that this is for someone who is either like I'm out of the Star Wars thing, which I was kind of that way. It's like Mandalorian, cool, and then it lost me.
I can answer the question
guess.
I know you're going towards, which is basically, would you recommend this to someone who doesn't like Star Wars? And I had someone I was talking to someone the other day.
Or doesn't know anything about Star Wars.
Or doesn't know anything about Star Wars. I was talking to someone the other day who's not watched anything Star Wars since, I think, the last of the
Empire
sequel trilogy. yeah. The last of the sequel trilogy was just like, it's not for me. I'm walking away kind of thing. And they were saying, should I watch like Mandalorian or should I watch Andor? And I was like, Mandalorian is like distilled, concentrated Star Wars. Like if you're a Star Wars fan, Mandalorian is the Star Wars. That's all the Star Wars things you like, done really well and entertainingly, and it's got a cool theme tune. It's a really good Star Wars. Andor feels like something that actually is something completely else, and it's something that kind of expands and extends on it. And the one viewing tip I'd give that I heard or I read an article about it. The shows basically, and this again just shows the level of respect they're treating the material with. Each 3-episode block is written by and directed by the same people. So what we've been doing is we've been waiting for them to come out in threes, and Austin will back me up here. Like each of those, the chunks of 3 feel like they were meant to be watched together. So I would recommend anyone who's interested.
Ooh,
and it's 12 episodes.
I like that.
It's because
I like that a lot.
Movies.
It's effectively
I'm
4 feature films.
To a quadrilogy, yeah.
That's the way that Midnight Mass was directed. Mike Flanagan said, I believe, was like that it's supposed to be like a series of films rather than TV. And I think that's like a thing that I don't like about Mandalorian. While I actually think Mandalorian is a good show, I stopped watching it because it's hard for something that's like serial to retain me. If there isn't a through line or a character who's heading towards one specific goal, I tend to just lose interest. And I think part of the war
is somewhat episodic. This is episodic, but the episodes are 3 episodes long. I would say it's got like you could definitely watch episodes 4 through 6, without having seen episodes 1 through 3. I think.
So Alanah,
I don't know that I agree with that. But stuff. Yeah, I mean that's all that it is. It's all character focus. That's why the other thing I'll just throw in real quick, and then Troy, you were about to say something to Alanah, but the thing I'll add in about the whole one of the complaints that I see in my community is There's no question that.
Yeah, I was like, what's your community?
Like the world of composers.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. We were very dismissive of that very valid thing.
Fuck you, composers. Got it.
I have other friends,
No.
But
No.
the score for Andor is done by Nick Britell, who's most well known for Succession and a bunch of other things. And
Does it have that bring-a-dong, gang-a-gong,
But it feels
like that
like
hip hop?
like this is the thing that's hard to convey. It feels like a HBO show. It feels
Yeah,
like
that's
a
the
kind of
thing.
TV kind of thing.
Shit.
it doesn't
Okay.
feel Star Wars. It's not really orchestral music at all. There's a few moments where it actually does borderline on that, Troy. Not in a cheesy
They
way,
did
but
a little Imperial March in episode 6 that I loved. They had like a little Imperial March just they're playing underneath it, just a little bit.
it's very, very like. And I've seen a lot of people say that the score, the kind of space opera, kind of melodramatic orchestral sensibility of John Williams is a definitive quality of what makes things Star Warsy. As like, and that this show, to me, I applaud. Even though the music to me is largely, it's so subtly used, you don't really retain anything by and large about it. But I see that as an admirable. Let's burn it all to the ground and build afresh. Build anew. And I think the courage it takes to do that on a multi-billion-dollar franchise, especially one that's been on such a everything is about nostalgia. It was but Mandalorian was nostalgia with a dash of novelty, and then Boba Fett was like, let's just get rid of the dash, and then Obi-Wan was like, we'll show you how to get rid of the dash. So it was like everything was just doubling down harder and harder and harder and harder on the nostalgia.
Member
The sequel
berries.
trilogy was the same. Member berries, 100%. This isn't like that at all. Like you don't even like they this is not really a spoiler, but there's a minor thing that is just so worth pointing out about the craftsmanship
Darth
of
Vader
storytelling.
dies.
No, like you spend the whole first few episodes is just like watching this scrappy ragtag like proto Rebel Alliance folks before the rebellion really exists. Spending months and months and months planning what in any other thing would be a modest operation, and they keep talking about, we have to worry about, there's an Imperial airbase, and finally it's like 3 episodes in, a single TIE fighter flies by, and it feels like a huge fucking deal. It actually feels scary. It actually doesn't feel like some disposable pawn, one of a million that can be killed off, and it feels like that thing is a fucking military piece of equipment, and a single one of them doing a flyby scares the shit out of these people, and it's like, boy, it's been a long time since Star Wars felt anything like that.
This does sound very cool. And
Everything
I think
has weight. It's wonderful.
That's
also
Obviously,
production design.
I love all things Disney makes, obviously.
Yes.
But I particularly love Andor.
well, I think
It's also just really, really well shot, and it feels like they built really huge sets, and they're not relying on the volume and all that kind of stuff.
The space that the first few episodes take place in, like Space Manchester, basically, is just fundamentally just massive and beautiful. Yeah, I would strongly recommend it.
one of my struggles, I think, with watching it is something that like you've alleviated my concerns regarding here is I feel like I just keep watching so much IP content when I watch TV because I don't watch a lot of TV, and I feel like I'm just watching IP content of the same shit over and over and over again. And if I only have a small amount of time to watch TV, I want to watch Succession or whatever. And I think that was part of the problem with Star Wars was that I felt like I was in some of those other series watching advertising or like watching something that's like trying to sell me on a brand. Right? Yeah. Or a universe or like.
It's still an IP, but Interview with the Vampire is really good as well if you've not started watching that.
I've seen a lot of tweets about that. But that does sound like it's away from that. Like,
sorry. What's going on here?
That's all right. Sorry, Troy, what were you gonna ask?
Number one, it looks like you have a testicle on your head.
That's not a question.
We were all thinking it. Fuck, I don't remember what my question was from a long time ago.
That was years ago.
Yeah, sorry, that's on me.
No, we took you that long to get you to answer the question. I think you're okay.
I think that I was gonna. Fine. I think I was gonna say if you were like if there's not like a through line, if there's not a single character that's moving towards a goal, does that mean that like anthological content?
There is. I oversold that aspect of it. There 100% is. And he's
all right,
Andor,
but
like, yeah.
But a lot
outside of Star Wars, yeah.
Do you not then like anthological content, or do you like what is it?
I really like Black Mirror, but I think I look at that as a series of films. I think, again, I have a trouble watching a lot of TV because it really doesn't feel productive. I recognize that doesn't really make any sense. I prefer to spend my time playing video games because at least that feels productive, because I feel like I am always like trying to learn things about the industry that I work in by playing video games, or like stay informed or whatever. So I have a lot of trouble watching TV unless I am very emotionally invested.
Hold on. I would love to this ping something for me, because I remember talking to a friend and he said that young kid, and he wanted to be an actor and a director, and he was like, so I need to go to film school. He was like, I don't want to just work at a coffee shop and do that. I want to do this because as a writer, I want to learn the skill of writing. I'm like, you learn how to be a writer by experiencing the human condition, and I can't imagine a better place for you to be than be at a coffee shop where you're face to face with it every day. Yeah. So I think that sometimes I've seen this within my own self. I have the tendency to get a little too insular and look at just the world in which I operate, as opposed to, a long time ago, a friend of mine told me, it was like, if you ever find yourself struggling for right brain activity, you should really probably exercise your left brain, because there's a balance that needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So if all you're doing is video games, that's not helping your industry.
But it's not.
That's actually
it's
doing
not.
a deficit.
It's not. What I'm saying is, like, I find it hard to get through a lot of TV because it doesn't feel productive. So the challenge that I have, which is a challenge that I've had like for a long time that I need to figure out, is I struggle to do things if I do not feel like they are productive. Which, like, I'd love to be able to sit down and watch TV, but it doesn't feel productive in my head. But I still watch TV. It's that I have to be selective. So, like, if I'm only going to watch one series a month, should it be Star Wars 4 times? Like, I feel like that is limiting for creative thinking, if I'm just watching the same branded thing every time, which I was doing. And I want to watch Succession. Like, I haven't watched The Sopranos. I want to watch The Sopranos.
What about Succession, really? Because after, like, the second season, what about it for, like, the third season or whatever really grabbed you?
I haven't seen any of it. I've not.
Meaning it's on your list.
Are you saying?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's like the top of my list, but I haven't. And yeah, but
it's wonderful.
The reason it appeals to me so much is that
it's
shitty people, from my understanding, that are still, I don't know, interesting enough to hold an entire show. And I was like, that's something that I haven't seen before. Like, I want to watch that. I don't know.
It seems like what you're saying is
it's fascinating because it's a comedy in terms of it's written by the Peep Show. It's two British writers do the Peep Show, right? And it's basically
it's also the showrunner is Will Ferrell, right?
But treated very seriously. Yeah, Will Ferrell's show, but like it's super serious, and that kind of
Will Ferrell is the showrunner of Succession.
He's
the co-showrunner.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever known that.
Yeah, it's he and who's the guy he's always trucking with? What's his name? Comedy writer.
Oh God. Yes.
Why am I drawing a blank?
Stopped working together recently, I think.
Groucho Marx.
Yeah.
No, 15 people are screaming at me right now. What's his name? Yeah. He's done all those movies.
I know what you mean.
Shit.
Mel Brooks.
Anyway, yes, Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
I have nothing to say.
I think what Alanah, I think I think the kind of summary of what you were saying is that you prefer to kind of let the filtering of what has naturally risen as a real legitimate contender, and instead of trying to be on the front lines of, the latest thing is out, let's go see how it is, you prefer to wait a beat for people to like enough people go, like, if I'm the 9th person to recommend Andor, then you go, okay, you know what, that one's probably now gonna get on the list alongside these others.
Sure.
That's interesting, because I'm definitely the flip of that. Like, I will go and try the first episode of everything, because I want to be the guy who finds the thing and recommends it.
I'm like that with games. I'll play everything. Like, even
now, I don't play nearly enough.
I watch a lot of movies too, though.
I'm a little bit different. Like, I feel like right now, the way that you can't just watch a show, you have to watch it immediately. We've gone back to event viewing. And if you haven't watched it the minute that it aired, you're out of the loop.
Doesn't bother me.
Like, it doesn't really bother me either.
Are you worried, like, from a spoilers perspective, or?
Yeah, because like House of Dragons or whatever. I was like, somebody tweeted about this or whatever. They said it's really hard to follow a show where every character's named Aragon, Aegon, Megan. It's just
And
like
they recast them every couple of episodes as well for that first
yeah.
season.
So
Nightmare.
but it's all. I understand a lot of what you're saying as far as like I feel like I'm watching. I would say it's a circus as opposed to an act. It's like this whole thing to where it's like. There's more derivative content about the thing than there is the thing. So
the things are often designed to encourage that as well, right?
It's true.
You can see a lot of
which
shows
to me
that actively are encouraging that circus to form around them as a marketing.
That says to me that the real thing, the real product is not the content. The real product is the conversation. Because that's really what people want. That's what humanity wants. We want to be able to discuss it. We want discourse about it. We want to argue about it. We want to find a community inside of it.
Water coolers, right?
Fair,
reinventing the opportunity.
But I suppose I also feel like a lot of those conversations have just become exhausting recently. Like the House of Dragons and Lord of the Rings are like not conversations I even want to be a part of. And just see people screaming at each other.
Well, everybody's like, here's how it disappointed me.
Right.
Like, who gives a shit? So
it's
what?
Fair, you're allowed to express that, but I'm good.
I think the right way to do those conversations is the way that you did, Alanah, a minute ago, where you go, sell me on Andor. Like, because I would love for a diehard fan of Rings of Power to sell me on it, because I really, really wanted to. And I was like, I'm bouncing off this hard. Like, this has really made a lot of decisions that I just can't parse. But I'm always willing to entertain the idea that there's something I don't see, especially in the case of that one, because I'm not one of these hardcore Tolkien fans that's like, kind of got a wider view of it. I'm basically just looking at it face value as a show. And as like a fan, I read the books and I watched the films, but my mind tends to think about other things. So it's like nothing would please me more than for someone who thinks it's just amazing to sell me on it beyond just like, oh, I liked it, but like, here's the thing you missed. That would be awesome.
I think I also just had the same problem, less so with Lord of the Rings, but definitely with House of Dragons, where I watched the first 2 episodes and then was like, this is more of the show that I already watched for 8 seasons. So it's the exact same thing that I was like, it's not saying it's not good. There were a lot of things that I liked about it, but I was like, I've seen something that's 8 seasons of this exact thing before. My time is limited, and I just stopped wanting to watch it. I mean, I watch a lot of documentaries. Like, virtually every documentary that shows up on Netflix, I will watch. But I don't know. I think the saturation of IPs is something that I recognize is not going anywhere. But
I have a question.
Yes.
How does that... I'm just curious how that makes you feel productive.
Knowledge. I'm directly learning about something. Again, I need to be very clear. I recognize that this is irrational, that my obsession with productivity is not rooted in logic. It's
irrational.
I can relate
feels
to it.
irrational.
I have it from the opposite side, that I don't play as many video games as I should, because if I'm intellectually able to like do something interactive, I would just rather make a video game. Like, so for me, I watch a lot more movies and TV, because for me, entertainment time is like when I'm not, if I'm on the ball enough to engage with a video game, I just want to go and code something, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a similar thing, but from the other angle. Kind of like,
apropos that, I will say I can kind of relate to that, Mike, but I have to say the loophole that I've been really grateful for is the fact that DICE has asked me to kind of periodically co-host their Game Maker's Notebook podcast, because
the only reason I get to play most stuff is just every year those awards come around and I have to actually play.
I love that.
Well, and also I do interviews with people in order to know what their new release is and to to be able to talk about it. Like I did one the other day with Ron Gilbert, so I was like very excited to play through the new Monkey Island. I was excited anyway, but it kind of sped it up in my.
I did the same thing. I played through it because I interviewed Dominic.
That's how
nice.
they're selling copies. Is they're just doing hundreds of thousands
of people who are like, that's a pretty short game. I gotta get through that.
I have to say, I really liked it.
I did
too. Point and click adventures were very much like my home base genre growing up. The Sierra games on the one hand, and the LucasArts games, all the Monkey Island in particular, but like obviously Grim Fandango I'm kind of obsessed with. But Full Throttle and The Dig and Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, they're all great, and all the Space Quest and Police Quest and a lot. And this one to me felt just novel enough to not be a Member Berries thing, but it was clearly a kind of let's continue that lineage. Like let's not overly worry about if the genre needs a total revision. Like it's okay to say let's start in that territory and kind of push forward. I loved that he included. I'm curious your thoughts on this specifically. As a writer, the fact that the game has a toggleable writer's cut that like trims dialogue and stuff.
Monkey Island does?
Yeah. Literally, there's a feature in the menu that says, basically, if you want a slightly more succinct game, you can like uncheck the writer's cut. This is just in the new one I'm talking about, the Return to Monkey Island.
This was forwarded around my team as a way of mocking.
I've been playing.
God,
can we talk about Vampire Survivors?
Hang on, I wanted to say that's the thing that we've spoken about on this exact show was the I think we discussed it on an episode forever ago, was the idea of a writer's cut of something that like
I guess I had forgotten.
Yeah, that like the idea of like a toggle where you could experience a game or certain parts of it, or just completely remove others. Like I think we spoke about it in terms of like puzzles or gameplay, that maybe you just take them out entirely.
What does that mean?
I know.
I can tell you. I asked because I played it with. I wanted the full thing. I did it on like the quote hard mode, the writer's cut. I was like, I want whatever is the fullest, most bloated version of this I can get my hands on.
Either way, this version.
It's a toggle. It's an option in the game.
Settings,
yeah, I've looked at it. All right, I'll look at it again.
You have to if you launch and go to the. So I asked him like, what is an example of a thing that changes based on the writer's cut? Like, because I said, how do you, when so many of the puzzles are built around dialogue and clues come from what people say, how do you edit that? Because it didn't feel like there was piles of superfluous side, the equivalent of like a BioWare game where you're like, oh, I might romance this person, and there's a bunch of stuff that's not really core to the advancing the story, but it's there to marinate the gameplay. He said, as an example, one of the most explicit examples was when you go to Melee Island at the beginning, the original 3 pirate leaders have been kind of kicked out of the bar, and they're standing in the middle of the street kind of away from it, and you can talk to them. And he said, if you have the writer's cut thing disabled, they're just not there. That whole ability to interact with them is gone because it's not actually required. And so players who, like, there's some subset of players that might interact with them, think they're looking for like, oh, this is going to be a clue for later, and then if it turns out that it was nothing there, it just feels like hollow, dead air. So they said we can cut things like that, or even specific lines, or shorten conversations.
I think it's cool. I think
really cool,
because the alternative is not that the game would have been longer, or would have had more writing. Like it's that all would have been cut. Like the only thing that would have shipped would have been the short version, right? So it's not like they've removed content.
That would have been the right choice.
Yes,
right? That would have been the right choice for what they were making.
Yes,
yeah.
so it would have been shorter. So the toggle is adding content, technically not removing content. And I think that's cool for players who want different things. Like I'm totally in support.
I'm trying to think if that's ever happened in like film. The only one I can think of is
director's cut is kind of that, isn't it?
Well, that's director's cut rather than like I'm thinking like so like
cut?
with
I don't even know what that would mean.
Once upon a there's an example. There's the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tarantino wrote a novelization. And the novelization, because novelizations back in the day for films would often be based on a script, so they'd have scenes in them that were not in the movies, because that stuff would get cut or changed or whatever. So there'd often be discrepancies, and he's played into that with that book and deliberately written it with a bunch of scenes that are not in the movie. And there's lots of stuff in that book which he never shot.
Not know that.
He never wrote, and it's a really interesting book.
That's
because
cool.
It basically just adds so much depth that you kind of didn't get when you watched that movie.
I suppose oftentimes it is that in reverse. A book version, like if a book's written and a movie's adapted from the book, then the book is technically the writer's cut.
That's a really good point.
It's just backwards.
Here's a question for half of our quadrant. Do you direct from the page, or do you intentionally write?
This is definitely at me.
Do you? Well, actually, this actually, in some way, does apply to you. However, I feel like it would.
However,
okay.
I don't give a fuck what you have to say.
Yeah,
so.
no, it's fine. It's
Hold
fine.
on.
Carry on.
Oh wait, because I think that I want to see if I want to flex a little bit, because this either goes to your orchestrator or it goes to your copyist, Austin. If you were to write something that says fortissimo or allegro or whatever, that is open to interpretation. So you are saying that this needs to be played such a way, but you're allowing for that musician to be able to interpret that as they will based upon their knowledge of the same word. You're both agreeing on this thing. As writers, do you guys both write on the page so that you present that to not just actors, but everybody else who's going to extrapolate that page out to their level design and to their world design and to their whatever their specific function within the piece is? Or do you try to make it as specific as possible so that there is less interpretation for that?
I always do it collaboratively, so I would be like...
What does that mean, though? What does that collaborate?
That means that I've literally written it in... Well, yeah. To start with, then, before it gets to the actor, because there's a lot that happens before the actor comes into play, obviously. I would write it and be like, oh, well, level design will figure something out here. Like, literally, like, there is space on the page for, well, combat will do something with this.
Where do you fit into that process? Do you, when you're, because I know how it works on kind of our scale, but, like, are you writing stuff before there's like a grey box at the level, or are you very reactive? Are you working
writing
with the designer
to it
while they're grey boxing? Like, what's the?
All of
it's
the
not that you sit down and
above.
write a script. All of the above. So
Yeah.
you originate some writing before the grey box.
I think I've said this before on the show, but my job is a lot more narrative design than I expected it to be, which I love, because a lot of it, I don't just write a script. A lot of it does have to be, how will this be interpreted by the player, and what is this going to look like in terms of gameplay and all of that, which is super fun.
And how does it sync up with gameplay? How does gameplay speak to this, and then how does narrative speak to?
And I mean, the coolest thing about working at somewhere like Santa Monica Studios, everyone's so fucking good at what they do that anything that you do that you take to another like department or part of the team or whoever you're working with, no matter what, they're gonna give you ideas that are way better than everything you had. So like it's almost every day I go, holy shit, that's so cool! Like, just because of someone I work with is really good at what they do. So I would never.
That's the hope, always, right?
Yeah, and I think actors are exactly the same. Like when it comes to time where the actor is reading the words, they're gonna bring you a bunch of cool shit that you never thought of that's gonna make the character better. I think that like it would be really dumb, especially on a video game of such a large scale, to expect your words to just be perfect from the get-go.
Not necessarily perfect, but just to speak to that, I do know that there's a lot of times when it's okay. So the intention that I put behind this was so that, you know, it's kind of important that you say it this way.
Oh, I do that. I do like sarcastic or like to the one direction that I've never done in any other kind of writing is you say who it's directed to. Like right, like character says go this way, but who are they saying it to? So that it's clear.
I think that's important. That's stage direction.
I record
That's
every
not
line
in
of
a lot of
dialogue
screenplays.
myself onto a cassette player, and I hold it up to the actor's ear as they're delivering the line.
Repeat this.
For the record,
I think the other big. Oh, go on.
Well, I was just going to add a little thing. Like, one of the fundamental differences, I think, between that kind of writing and my kind of writing, to the point that you brought up, Troy, is that if the underlying goal is to write music that's scary, and I have decided as the composer that loud and ferocious is going to be how I get to scary, there isn't a wiggle room in a typical situation for a musician to go, I actually think scary is really quiet and unnerving, so I think fortissimo should be pianissimo.
You're not doing
in the way that
you're doing.
in the way that like an actor might go, what if I whisper the line instead of I shout it? Like, that is a much more viable play that can happen in a director-actor scenario than in a music one. Whether it's common or whether it's appropriate, it is way more viable to me than imagining the musical equivalent of that, of like, especially if you're looking at a 80-piece orchestra and one violin is like, I actually think it should be quiet instead of loud, and like everybody else's parts are aligned
Understood.
to the contrary.
But if it's your first chair, if it's your concert master and it's your first chair of violin, and they go, "Can I show you something? Would you listen to them?"
Oh, always. But it's usually them saying, I can achieve what you have on the page. Like I can see what, in this way it is, I guess, analogous, where they're going, I think I understand what your goal is behind these notes and behind these directions on how to play them. And if we play it like this, it might achieve that. But it's usually subtle variations on it, like a violinist might say, do you want me to play this off the string or on the string? Which would be like, bowing where they go as one unbroken thing versus where the bow has a little lift in between. So it's like and you feel the separation. The difference is noticeable, but it's also the kind of death by 1,000 cuts. Like you're making a lot of really tiny incremental changes, not, oh, you're right, let's rewrite the melody or something like it. It's
right.
Those are way bigger, more deep changes.
But I think
I have to
it's also
go.
just a very
Immediately.
What?
Yes. But you guys can keep chatting if you want. I can
There's
keep
so
recording.
many thoughts on this subject.
Yeah, keep going.
Happy Halloween.
I'll just keep recording. Happy Halloween, everyone. Bye.
See you later.
Michael, what were you going to
just-
say?
I was going to say loads of things. There's a few layers to this. I think it's partially it was what
If she's
Alanah-
gone, I'm losing the jacket. Fucking boy.
I think it's kind of like Alanah was
What
saying
the
about
fuck,
narrative
Austin?
design thing is
God damn it.
the bit you make the actor say is like the last 5 to 10% of the writing job, and I think that's the
100%.
people always miss is that they think the collaboration is about the words on the page. It's the writing is the process of the planning, the thinking, the working stuff out, the collaboration. Like for us, like our studio's approach, we have this conversation a lot because we've been hiring a bunch of people recently, so we've had to kind of walk them through kind of what the Bithell Games approach is with this stuff, and that means thinking about it and actually working out what the fuck we are actually going for most of the time. And I think the thing that's kind of defined why I think our games tell good stories is we've always written the story around the gameplay. So you make Thomas Was Alone, you work out what the characters can do, and then you write a story that supports and works around that and kind of exaggerates and support and builds on top of that. You make a great level, and then you work out the logical story reasons that can work. You find the opportunities. You tweak and you change it. It is always that kind of back and forth with gameplay. It's never that I sit down and write a script and then deliver that to the team and a game is made. Our medium doesn't work that way. With the actor bit, if you think about like the full thrust, and this is obviously different in AAA, but like indie, I'm making a game. If I take like 2-3 years to make a game, I'm in the booth with actors for like a week. Like it's an amazing privilege and it's awesome. But to me, when I think about what writing is, I'll be honest, I don't necessarily think about the actors, which is a really weird thing to say. But it's like it's not like shooting a movie where you're like there for months with people. It's like you've got this game and you know this, Troy, because I've directed you before. But it's like I come to you at a point where there is a game. I can show you the game on a laptop. You can get a sense of what the feel of it is, and you're bringing your expertise to elevate that through what you're doing. But it's not. It doesn't feel like we're in conversation in terms of like collaborating on the like higher level choices of the game, because those have kind of long been made long ago, right? So it's an interesting difference between this and film.
The thing in my career that even just now I've been dealing with is trying to make high level changes too late. So there's this team that I've been working with is cool enough. They were like, well, how about we bring you in early on, and when we're workshopping this, we can actually get more into the nuts and bolts of why the scene is being written, what the scene needs to accomplish. And the thing that I have to really commend this team for, that ultimately when the game gets released, you'll see, is that they understand that if they're writing a scene, it has nothing to do with the game. It has everything to do with character or story. There will be something that they want to make sure that the characters are speaking to about something that's happening in the game, so it's not this completely divergent thing. But I think it's a trap that a lot of people fall into, which is, let's write a scene and have actors act out talking about the game. And that doesn't matter. because if it's something cool that should be happening in the game, the players should be doing it. If we make the characters do it, it should be something that the player doesn't want to do or can't do. So I was trying to have that conversation far too downstream, and thinking that you, like you said, that's a conversation that could be had on the day, as opposed to, and I think I've told this story here, but I've told it many times other places. Brian Fleming, who's the studio head at Sucker Punch, is the one who first introduced me to the notion. He was like, the pages that we're handing to you have blood on them, man. All the wars that you're trying to fight have already been waged, won and lost. And you have great ideas, but you need to be in the room, not on the stage. And then I talked to Craig Mazin, and I say, when you write your script, and I was fortunate enough to read the pilot script for the HBO series, and it's one of the best pilots that I've ever read. I mean, it's so good. It's tight. It was captivating. I can't wait either. But the thing that I asked him was like, you really spell out a lot. He goes like, I totally direct from the page. I'm like, but I thought you weren't supposed to do that. I thought that was like amateur stuff. He's like, no, I totally direct from the page. I'm like, but what about the director that's going to be there? Because he's not necessarily directing the episode, or the actor could be like, well, I want to interpret it this way. He's like, great, then we can get into that conversation. That's fine. He's like, but I at least want to get out my perspective and what I want to get out of this, and then I want to open
direction.
it up.
Like that, to be clear, like having a specific position as a starting point is essential, because otherwise people think you don't know what you're doing or are worried. I think another key difference, I think, in the game side to what I understand from TV and film is the number of people around the table who are actually making decisions and are actually able to kind of put that input in. If you're working on a film set, I presume if the guy holding the mic is like, I think we should probably shoot this a different way because it would make my life easier, that's not necessarily going to go down very well, right? Or that's not necessarily going to be heard on a big kind of set. Whereas I think in games, like, well, first of all, we're inventing the boom mic every fucking time we make a game, working that out as we go. But you're also but you're also just kind of constantly in this discussion. So there is no moment where like you come down with the stone tablets that say this is the game we're making. It's collaborative from day one. It has to be. There's no other way to make a video game. It's just such a complex interlocking set of systems. And then I think what can work is what you're saying is kind of siloing off, like going, okay, no, the scenes, the cutscenes in this game, they are going to be kind of a separated thing. But that's expensive. It's also it's definitely like just not kind of my kind of way of making games, but I totally see it as a way of doing it. And it's a way of doing that in a way that kind of contains it and allows you to tell a good story, for sure.
It's something that I would scream to my younger self, and I would, at the very least, laud to actors, especially getting into this medium, and without drudging
dodge
waters.
The thing you're going to dodge for sure.
Yeah. Understand that when Alanah said collaboration, that word and the notion of partnership does carry some weight. However, do understand that the point where they're bringing you in for collaboration, the point that they're bringing you in for partnership, is, like you said, so far down the line. That doesn't mean that I'm any less important. That doesn't. There's a reason why they spend tens of thousands of dollars on casting. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on actors. They spend millions of dollars potentially on shooting those scenes. Yep. There is a earnest desire to make those performances be the next whatever, the next standard, the next 100%. Bastion.
Yeah.
But it is important to understand that we do have a very precious place within this medium, but there is a place for it, and it has to be dealt with in a very delicate way. I think it's just I made the mistake of overestimating my influence, and Brian Fleming, again, was a great person to point this out. He was like, "You're a very powerful force." I said, "Thank you." He goes, "That's not a compliment. Where you're trying to exact change is too far down the river, and it's actually destructive." And so I think it's important for actors that are moving into this medium to understand that we do have a lot of power when it's costing us $65,000 to $75,000 a day to shoot that scene that day. And we go, "Well, I have an idea." I have the ability, if I want to bring that entire process to a grinding halt. If I want to just be difficult,
Yeah.
but the point that I'm hopefully working towards is to be able to be in the collaboration, to be a partner, and to be able to keep the wheels on the bus moving, so that we do create a scene that someone does find memorable, that does bring the writer's words to life, that does bring the director's vision to fruition, and that ultimately does make a great game.
Yeah, and I
Beautiful
think what
button.
you do in particular, like to find
Thank you,
opportunities.
Austin.
Well, I think I know you personally as well are very interested in forming those relationships earlier up the river, and I think that's the way to do what you're trying to do and to kind of have that more of an impact, is to acknowledge the industry as it is rather than necessarily what you wish it would be, and kind of then finding
I
opportunities.
have to run. Feel free to keep going.
Fuck off.
Sorry,
All right.
Fuck you,
sorry.
Austin.
I'll let you keep going, but I gotta bounce.
Go bounce.
So we're just gonna whittle down until one of you is monologuing.
All right.
It's gonna be me.
I'll do it. It's gonna be me. I do think that I would encourage. I mean, this has kind of become like an actor's thing, I suppose. But if you get a significant role in a game, then I would highly recommend. It's a very delicate balance to strike, and I'd be curious to see what you think about this. But I think I've seen value in letting the dev know, and the creatives know. It's like, man, I'm sold out for this. Like, I want to do my research. I want to be in as early as I can. There's never enough information. I'll devour it all, and then at some point, understanding that I want the chair to be offered to me as opposed to pulling it out myself from the table. And that's something that I still am very cautious about how I do. But as someone who is a studio head, well, yeah, but like, what would you want to see from an actor?
Well, it's what you said. It's showing that passion. It's showing passion without arrogance. And I think that, to be honest, I think that's true of anyone you're trying to hire in the games industry. Like, I think there are definitely people who have worked on like multiple of our games, and there are people who've worked on one of our games. And the difference in most cases is that that's someone we want to work with. Again, obviously that's not the case in all cases, but like often that's the case. So there are actors who have popped up in like 3-4 of our projects because they're just bringing so much to the table, because I know that's someone who's reliable, going to be passionate, going to bring a cool idea.
Talking about Greg Miller.
He's the best actor in the world, he's going to change this industry, I'm telling you. Now he's got his fancy set. We could have made that game so much easier with that awesome like volume wall he's got now. He's got the whole setup. Solitaire 2, we're gonna have to do it. But no, I think it's something you've definitely put out there, and I think that's how you make it happen. I don't think it's that game developers don't want to invite more people into that process earlier. I don't think it's that. I think it's just often the case that we're problem solvers. We've got our budget, we've got our time, we're working on this game, we're never going to get it done until we do. But I think by making it known that that's something that you're interested in, that means that, like, you know, in future, I know I do, I'm genuinely, it crosses my mind with several projects. There are several actors, you're one of them, where early on in the project I'll be like, is there something for Troy in this? Is there something I'd like to work with Troy on this? And I think there's maybe like, that's a list of like 5 people maybe. And I think that's what you're trying to build up. And the way you build that up is by being professional, by being passionate, by caring. I think that's the advice I'd give to anyone kind of coming up, is to kind of emulate, be like Troy Baker basically, but slightly less so. That would be my tip.
Yeah, but
like Troy, but not quite as much. Like
not like early Troy. Yeah, like 98% late Troy. The thing that I've realized, and it's a really hard pill to swallow, is that we're just not that important. And I know that's really hard to hear, but like even from the audition process, where I'm like, oh man, I spend like, if I go out for a role and I put myself on tape, or I meet with the producers and I do the scene, from the second that I have said the last word of that scene and said goodbye and thank you and left, it's all that I'm thinking about. It's all that I'm thinking about. They, on the other hand, are like, well, that was a lot of fun. I wish I could do this all day. Ah, fuck. And they open up their inbox and they're looking at all the emails, or they're opening up their Slack and they're seeing all the things that they missed out on while they were there doing something fun, working with actors, which is what they would love to be able to do all day, but they can't. Ah, shit, now level design is speaking to, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And they go about the business of making a game, and then meanwhile, the actor is thinking, I'm thinking, well, they're not texting me, or they're not immediately emailing me going, holy shit, dude, you have revolutionized even the notion of what acting.
You've changed what we thought
You've
this game would
changed,
be.
you know, and if it's anything less than that, then I've failed, and I'm not going to get it. And then months go by. This project that I was on right now, months went by from like, it was very much of the, I've talked about this before, it was like the Princess Bride. It was like, good job, Wesley. We'll most likely kill you in the morning. You know, I keep thinking that, oh, that's it, I'm done. And I give up. There's no way it's going to happen. But there's been a history of that within my career, where I went out for a thing that I didn't think that I was right for. I got the thing, or I auditioned for the thing, and then that led to another meeting, which led to another meeting, which led to another meeting. The thing that I'm on right now, there was more meetings on this, I think, than anything I've ever done before in my life. And ultimately, it's understanding that there's a whole other thing that they're making besides my part of it.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't make my thing anything less.
I don't think it's about importance. I think it's about scale. I don't think it's that you're less important.
Well
I
said.
think it's just that there's a bunch of other, and you know, it's also it's again, like comparing it to like film or TV. It's like games, in my opinion, likely will never be at a point where a game gets, you know, succeeds at a pitch because it's got an actor attached. I just don't think that's the power or the sway that's held here. But you know, if I want to make a movie, I write my script. First thing I'm doing is trying to find a star to attach to it, right? Because that's what gives you the rocket fuel on some level, right? Whereas I would not be able to do that with a game. Like that would not, no one would care.
But there is a metric. There is a, like, literally people can say, if you get X actor in your movie, we know that equates to X amount in foreign and domestic. So like there's a number attached to it. So if you write your script,
here, isn't it? We can't really engage
way more.
I can't say what the dollar value of Troy Baker in my game is. There is one.
Absolutely not.
There's a quality value, there's a creative value, but I couldn't put.
It's all subjective.
Yeah.
All subjective, because it's also the barrier of entry. The ticket price is different. Like if I go, all right, George Clooney and Julia Roberts, their new movie Ticket to Paradise is doing really, really well. We still want to see those two, and it's some romantic comedy. Absolutely, why not? I'll pay £15 or whatever, you know, $20 or whatever it is to go see. It's pretty much across the board. I can say 15, whatever it is. It's all equal now. It's really weird.
Fun. It's not fun.
But that there's a number attached to that, but also it's like at the most it's going to cost me $20. If I look and go, I really like Norman Reedus. Oh wow, Norman Reedus is in a game. I've never played a game before, but I really like Norman Reedus. What's it going to cost for me to play this game with Norman Reedus? $600. You know, there's a big difference for that, and it has nothing to do with Norman Reedus. Has nothing to do with the game. It has everything to do with the barrier of entry is way harder, and the amount of people that have the accessibility to either watch a movie on a streaming platform or go to the theater is way more broad than it is someone who even has a PS5.
And are literate in watching movies, right? Are able to, they're not freaking out at a controller, they're not confused by what dual thumbstick means. Like the film literacy is almost ubiquitous, right? Like most people can watch a movie and be entertained by it. Games are way below that level, and possibly will be for a long time. Like, and it's interesting seeing, like, we did at D23, we obviously announced our thing, but I was there with Amy Hennig, who's doing interesting stuff, and with like the more accessible. So I can't remember what she announced. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But like, how do you make these kind of games appeal to or accessible to a broader audience? And that stuff's fascinating. I think it's really interesting. So I think there's definitely. There's a long way to go. But in that scenario where gaming is ubiquitous, maybe stars start to happen again. Maybe we start to see actors kind of lifted in that way.
The thing that I do see happening is that there are people who are genuine gamers that also like that are stars that are gamers.
Oh yeah. Makes my
And
life a
so
lot
that-
easier. Like going to actors, like when they know, when they know what the medium is. That's 100%.
For sure.
Have you seen that
It's,
change in the course of your career? That like when you're talking to other actors who are not necessarily specifically like game actors, that has that changed in the time you've been working? I would assume
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's now this understanding of, and I think we've also seen that in like a perfect example is Craig Mazin. So you have this huge showrunner that is a diehard gamer. And you also have, there's far, more people in the industry besides Craig that are outside the mainstream, I guess, that are gamers that are now operating within the. Fincher is one who's not a gamer at all. And
like actively anti-gamer to an extent, right? Like doesn't want to play games, thinks games are for dweebs, that kind of guy, I'm assuming.
It's not that games are for dweebs. We had a great conversation where he said he had a pitch for a game, or he was brought in to consult on a game, and he was like, let me tell you what I would do for this, and he walked me through step by step. I was like, fuck, that's great, and he starts off this scene as a premise to set up this game. And he was like, but the problem is, he was like, that's a movie, that's not a game. And the second that you let the player do something, it's now out of your control, and you can't do that. Because you can't tell a story
David
within this
Fincher
space.
is very controlling of how his story is told. That's shocking information to read.
Very,
It doesn't come
because
across
he
in his
knows
work
it-
at all that he's focused on the detail at all.
Knows exactly what it's supposed to look like.
bet.
And so it's
I bet.
so I said, all right, let me tell you a story. And I said, you have this guy, and he is a good guy, hard worker, single dad. World breaks, all hell breaks loose. World goes into chaos. Daughter dies. Flash forwards 20 years, and I walk him through beat by beat, part one and part two. And I said, so then you have, dad dies, makes surrogate daughter, new daughter who does this, and he goes, "That's in a video game." I said, yeah, he goes, all right, that's a good story. Who was the director on that? I was like, his name is Neil Druckmann. So I understand his point, where again, at some point I can't look at a book and go, why are you not letting me be interactive? At some point, the medium is what the medium is, and
the people, I think,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Directing, the people who are working in the medium want that. It's that collaboration thing again. I remember like arguing with another indie dev once because they were complaining that we were at an event and we were both demoing our games, and a streamer walked past and got an enormous audience just kind of runs over to the streamer, and this guy I'm talking to is like, well, we make the things. Why is a kid, just because he plays stuff, he gets that audience? I'm like, you think you're David Beckham, but you're the guy making the shoes. Like, and it's okay, but like,
right.
That's your role in this. You're making a thing that empowers other people, either publicly or privately, to express themselves. We're not going to be the stars. We're not the focus of this. The player is. And it's a whole different medium because of that. And then I can totally understand if you're someone who works in like a linear media, giving up that level of control must be impossible to imagine because you're so used to having that finite. It was something that was really fun with the audiobook that you joined in with, which we did North Star Rising. Like, just writing a story and not having to think about the player in that, and just going, I'm just going to tell a fun little adventure story, was such a weird and interesting experience. Just because I've never done that before. I've always written interactively. So yeah, it's interesting.
Over the last month now, I've spent so much time, and it's something that's so foreign, being in the States to be in a place that does have such history, and understanding that most of the pieces of art. I was in the Louvre, and this notion hit me where I was like, a majority of the pieces of art that I'm looking at are only considered art because they're old. Someone gave them a designation, a number, put them behind glass, and they're under this roof.
Mm-hmm.
But they were originally designed to be pottery, tools, a letter to a relative. It was never made to be art. It was just, we look at it, we recontextualize that as art. So I think that, like you said, that the David Beckham thing is great. It's like, yeah, that's the person that gets to, he couldn't do what he's doing without what we do, but we do what we do so that he can do what he does, and he's going to get all the fame.
And there's pride in being a cobbler. It's a fun thing to do. You're making cool stuff. Like, and I think that's it's always a conversation. I think that's the interesting thing when you see art in a museum is it becomes, oh, I was about to quote our next game, so I can't do that. Those words belong to the Walt Disney Company. I will offline tell you a line from my next game, which is this. I think art is anyway, I can't say any of that publicly, so I'll shut the fuck up.
There's 2 edits. We have in one episode.
That's fine. I edited myself there. That's fine. That saves a lot.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I mentioned early on that the hotel that I was at in Bath was a lovely little charming
Actually,
town.
in Bath, they call it Bath, not Bath. Bath is a southerner way of saying it. They wouldn't like that.
What I found that was interesting is Bath Spa. I was like, all right, you guys stop. I went to the Abbey that was there. It was beautiful. I thought about you.
I think about you too, Troy.
I walk in and I'm curious. I want to see if I was right or not.
Yeah.
I walk in and this, this beautiful abbey, and I love going into old churches. I love seeing the history. I love seeing mainly just the history. Fuck! I'm tired. I love the 2 guys that are on the longest or the latest.
The ones in the time zone where that's least
fucking
appropriate.
party animals. So
I want to hear this story, and then I'll let you go after that. Go for it.
All right. So this woman climbs if you've ever been into like a basilica style church, in the middle there's the altar down here, but then there's also the pulpit that's right here. She climbs up there and she says, for all of our patrons today, this is an opportunity. We're going to say a prayer, and this is the time where we pray for world peace and pray for those who have been lost in war. And we just ask that you have a moment of silence, or if you want to join us in prayer, you can. Please have a seat, or just stand wherever you are. And it was this cool thing. I've never been a part of that before. I've been in there where there's been mass, or I've been in there where there's been a christening, or some other kind of form of liturgical activity that's happening, but never been when it's like, hey, we're going to do this prayer. And it was for the masses. And I found myself, I was sitting there and I was like, it's so funny because it's more than anybody else. I was like, I wonder what Mike would do right now. And I was curious what you.
Well, first
if
of
you
all,
were
I
there.
can't set foot in a church because I set fire immediately. So.
Fuck off.
No. The honest answer is I would take a moment and reflect. I don't think there's anything wrong. As an atheist, I think it's absolutely a human thing, not a religious thing, to think on things, to show respect, to take a moment. I think that predates any concept of religion. I think that's just a human thing. So I would reflect, I would think about the subject that was talked about, and I'd show respect to the space I was in as well. I'm in someone's house. I'm gonna take my shoes off. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do things their way. So I'd be very respectful and take a moment and think about things, and then head out. And then obviously I would just curse religiously for 30 minutes just to offset the.
Just to balance it out a little bit.
To be honest, the experience, and I know this is true of your upbringing as well. Like I grew up around religion. You know, it's the Church of England. We have an entire church that exists because of how hot Anne Boleyn was. So it's like there's a whole culture you grow up in that you can't kind of avoid. So I've always had respect for the church and people. I have respect for good people, whatever their belief system is. I disagree with them on many things, but if you're a good person, you're a good person. It doesn't matter what you believe, frankly.
I also do like. I'm glad that I was right about that because I found myself thinking that exact same thing. Where you're like, you are someone who would respect where you were at and be able to appreciate it on a different level, kind of the same way that I was. To where I'm taking this in and I appreciate the fact that I get to be a part of this. That I'm sitting in a place right now where for centuries people have done this exact thing, and that alone is worthy of at least remarking that, at least
I love
acknowledging
experiencing other cultures. Like when you go to like the wedding of someone who's from a faith that you've not been around much. Like the experience of seeing those cultures and seeing how things. It's always fascinating. No, I'm.
If you've never been to an Indian wedding, or if you've never been to a Jewish wedding, if you've never been to apparently a Balinese funeral.
I don't think I've ever been to a Jewish wedding or a Balinese funeral. I should tick those off the list at some point.
Those
which
two right
Balinese
there.
one sounds like that's psychopath thing. That's I'm not gonna go and kill someone to find out that. But yeah.
Sorry, I just want to go to the funeral.
Sorry, I really want to experience this. You did mention that I was a friend of yours before this occurred, so I would be invited to the funeral. Right?
I was going to ask this, and then we'll leave it with this because this is apparently a Halloween episode. Do you subscribe in any way? I was mentioning that I was in Bath, and that 100% the hotel was haunted. It was just there's no way around it. I even asked. I was like, "What was this hotel?" She was like, "Oh, it was. This part was dormitories." But then, of course, it belonged to the aldermen for a while. I was like, so it's haunted. She was like, oh, absolutely. He's like, here's your room, dear. I was like, fuck. And I turned and she was gone. But what is do you believe in any, whatever it means, are there ghosts?
In a physical, literal sense, I don't believe in ghosts now. I believe similar to your paintings hanging in the Louvre, I think humans are brilliant at attaching meaning to things. And I think if ghosts exist, then that is a poem we tell ourselves about the world we live in. And I think if that's real, it exists in the sense that it matters to people, so it's real. But no, I don't think there's like any magical, people still around kind of thing.
Apparitions that people see, whatnot. What is that?
Rare enough that it wouldn't be ghosts is my boring scientific answer. Like, just because if you think about how many people have died in history and where they've died and how frequently we would be seeing ghosts if that were the case. But like I said, I do have respect for it, and I do. I think it's interesting that people keep telling each other ghost stories, regardless of whether those stories are true. I think there's an interesting thing that humans reach for that unknown and either, in my opinion, create mythologies or, find truth. It's interesting to me. I feel like in this era it's similar to UFOs. It's like we've had smartphones for a while now. Like someone would have filmed something at this point. Like that's kind of my take on it, my hot take.
Mike, look behind you. Look behind you. Mike? Dead. Happy Halloween.